All right, let's talk a little bit about your design projects. So this recording is meant to just give you the backbone on your design projects, and it's a resource for you to come back to during the semester as we get further and further into these design projects. So I just want to hit the high level components, the expectations, because it is a semester long project with a lot of components. So if there's any questions after this video, please do not hesitate to email me. All right, so the first thing that I want to just mention, because we did talk about this very briefly in class, we are working with small rural communities, and small rural communities often face challenges that large, well-funded municipalities do not. The city of Omaha and the city of Lincoln are very well equipped to deal with water and wastewater concerns, but when you move outside of these big cities, anywhere across the country really, small rural systems often face challenges of staffing, financial, managerial, technical capacity. They deal with a lot more issues, and as a result, many of these systems have some water quality and sanitation concerns. And that's not always a good feeling, right? When you're a community and you can't serve, you're a person who works for these utilities and you serve a community and you can't provide adequate services. So something that I like to make sure that I mention when we work with these types of projects is that you want to be careful about what you're assuming about the people living in these communities. You don't want to assume political, financial, demographical, anything like that about these communities. We don't know. We only have very little data in reality without talking to communities. So just think about that when you're starting to design, that you don't want to make a lot of assumptions about that. Many of these communities, they were chosen specifically because they actually have drinking water violations right now, and that's not a great place to be. And this tends to put us in like a position of privilege, so to speak. And we want to be careful about just respecting the fact that these communities are dealing with concerns, but we don't want to necessarily portray them as disastrous or use words that might, kind of have a negative connotation with them. It's not to say we don't tell the truth about the issue, but it's to say that sometimes you want to think about being tactful. And this is something you'll come across in your professional careers. So something that I've learned working with communities is that we want to say we work with communities. And so I'm just asking you to think about that mindset for this semester as we go forward. All right, so your design project, as we talked about in class, is 40% of your final grade. Okay, so it's a project with 3 to 4 people in your groups, and we are still kind of shifting around who's in class. So if groups need to be shifted, please contact me. And basically the idea is that this design project is designed to have some small deliverables throughout the semester that culminate in a final report and a presentation. And so these are the components. I mentioned them very briefly in our first day of class, but in this presentation I kind of want to go through them in detail just so you understand what's coming at you. And I put this disclaimer in here. I mentioned that we go breadth in this class, and I will give you lots of calculations and options to use, but you're really going to have to do some research outside of the information provided in class. Please talk to me. I'm happy to help you find resources. This is my field, which puts me in a unique position to be able to help you this semester. But the reason that I put this disclaimer here is that this is what's going to happen in real life when you're designing for water and wastewater treatment. Just like transportation or structures, you have manuals that you go to look things up. It's the same in the water and wastewater industry. So we have good resources. There is a textbook mentioned in your syllabus. It's not required for this course, but that is a good resource. You can find copies in the library on both campuses. There is something called the 10 state standards, which I have linked to on Canvas. This is a set of design recommendations. There's EPA documentation on how to design treatment, and again, there's a link on Canvas. The SDWA stands for the Safe Drinking Water Act, and they have lots of documentation on contaminants. So when you start to look at your water quality data, this is a good place to look. And then there are also resources from AWWA, which is the American Water Works Association, and ACE, which is the American Civil Engineering Society. I probably have that acronym wrong. But all of these places are good places to look for resources. There's tons of design links on Canvas for you to explore. So I just want you to be aware that I'm going to do my best to provide you with a solid basis moving forward, but that you do need to do some research outside of class. All right, so these are our groups. I think we ended up with 6 this semester. And again, if you're missing a group member or somebody drops the class, please let me know. But our first 4 groups are Lincoln and our last 2 are Omaha. So you each have a city or a village basically that serves less than 10,000 people, which is the EPA's definition of small. So make sure that you pause the video or maybe take a screenshot and just make sure that you have met these people, because your first deliverable is coming up relatively soon, and I want to make sure that you understand what's going on going forward. All right, and we have lots of documents and resources. So your Canvas page has a module dedicated to design project resources. There's the 10 state standards, there's links to all sorts of design manuals that I can find relatively easily, and that's a great place to start. This, everything that's in this presentation is in your project document, so have a look at that if you're ever confused. And then I have compiled data about your communities on an external website. It's called Notion. And that link is available on Canvas. It's also available in these slides. And so you're going to want to take a look at all of that community data and understand what's going on there. All right. So again, this is another good slide to take a pause on. These are all of your due dates for upcoming components. We might shift your scope of work back just because of timing with classes, but everything is due on a Friday at 5 p.m. I like to be real consistent about that, and everything is due kind of as the semester progresses. So I want to see that you can do each part and then put it all together at the end. So as I mentioned, the idea is that when you do all these different components, they are all going to make up components of your final report. So I'm not asking you to duplicate work in a final report. I want you to take everything that you've made so far and put it into the final report. So we'll talk about scope of work. You're going to do a water quality memo, a water treatment design, a wastewater quality memo, and a wastewater design. And those 5 things are what I want to see in your final report. So the first one is scope of work. This is coming up due. Basically, this is a student definition of the problem using information provided. And I apologize, this slide still says Appalachian communities. It should say Nebraskan communities. So the idea is that you go and take a look at the data in your community, and you look at community-specific characteristics, you do a little digging, and you basically, as an engineer, say, what am I going to provide to the client? So many of you may have done this before in other classes. If you've taken senior design already, this is very familiar, hopefully. But if not, please let me know. I have some resources that I can use to help you write a scope of work. But it really should be a very quick summary of kind of what's going on in the system. So I want to see information about water, wastewater, what do people need, so on and so forth. And anytime it says AWP on these slides, I apologize, that is an error on my part. AWP is the partner we worked with last semester, so you can ignore that. The data is provided by me this semester. So apologize if there's any inconsistencies. The second thing you have to do is a water quality report or a water quality memo. And this is just a 1-page memo that looks at lots of water quality results. So we're going to talk about what are potential contaminants in water, what are the other things that we care about from a design perspective. And basically the idea here is that you're going to do a little bit of an analysis to see, how much water is being produced, what are the main contaminants, what are you going to address in the community. So I've provided you with some data, but you're going to need to go look for some more data related to your community, and we'll talk about some resources that you can use to find that data going forward. And then using that initial water quality memo, you need to do an initial water treatment design. And so I say initial or draft just because this is the first time that you're designing water treatment. I don't expect it to be perfect. But the idea is that you are going to propose at least 2 different technologies that the system could use. They could be used together or they could be used separately. And then for each of those 2 treatment technologies, I need to see at least 3 types of design calculations. So we'll go through different design calculations in class, and feel free to use those with your community, or you can go look up new technologies and find some design calculations for those. So we'll see lots of examples over the course of the semester. But the idea is that you're going to want to pick good technologies that remove the contaminants that you identified in your water quality memo. We're going to do a midterm presentation, and it's not a midterm presentation like you might be used to. This is a 5-minute presentation that basically summarizes the water quality analysis and the initial water treatment design. It's like a check-in with your client, so to speak, to say, where have we gotten to so far? Does this make sense? And so this is not actually a live presentation. This is a recorded presentation. So just like the pre-lectures that you've been watching, what I'm asking you to do is either use Zoom or to use PowerPoint, sit down as a group, put together some slides, and record a 5-minute update. So if you were going to update your client, but they just couldn't meet you that day, and you wanted to put together a quick little video for them, that's the idea here. All right, so you can use PowerPoint, and PowerPoint now has a record feature, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Or you can log on to Zoom and share your screen and then record yourselves on Zoom. And if there's any technical details that you need help with as we get there, please ask early. This is something that I can help with as well. After the midterm, we shift to wastewater or resource recovery. So same thing here, you're going to give me a memo and you're going to tell me what's going on with their wastewater, what's happening in the system. Or you can also tell me if you want to do resource recovery, what resources could you potentially recover from these systems? Nobody took me up on that last year, but I would be happy to talk to you more about that. If you wanted to stick with how do we treat this in typical wastewater, that's fine, that's your choice. But same idea here, you want to look at wastewater quality, tell me what's going on in these wastewater systems, and give me a sense of what you're going to want to treat. And then same as your water design, you do an initial wastewater design or a resource recovery design. Same thing here, you need 2 technologies with 3 different calculations for each. And hopefully we'll have provided you enough calculations over the semester to give you what you need. The last thing is a final report. So you're going to take everything you've done so far, your scope of work, your 2 water quality and your 2 wastewater quality or wastewater designs, and you're going to bring that all together. 5 things go into the final report. So this is worth quite a bit. So this is a good assignment. I would recommend turning this in multiple times before you actually submit the final, because you can get lots of feedback on this, and I think that that's really important going forward. So keep that in mind. And one thing that I want to say is don't just copy and paste your initial scope of work and your initial document straight into your final report and go from there. I'm going to give you feedback, and I think that that's a really important component of design. It's something that your professional engineers that you're going to work with are going to do. They're going to give you feedback, and they want to see it incorporated. So part of your final report is to incorporate all that feedback. I want to see that you've made changes. If you make a mistake with a water quality calculation in a design, that's okay, that happens. This is the first time that you've ever done it. But by the final report, I want you to make the changes so that this would look like a technical document you'd hope to send somebody. And then the last thing is a final presentation. It's about 10 to 15 minutes. I don't want you to go very long, and I want to see everything. I want to see, well, who is the community? What did you do for water? What did you do for wastewater? And then we'll have some time to ask questions. So that's it. Those are the components of the project. So this is your total points breakdown. So your group project is worth 40% of your grade, and there is a total of 550 points that you get over the semester. So however many you get out of 550 goes towards that 40% is basically how this works. So you can see that certain parts are worth a lot more than others, and you want to put more time and more effort into them. You can see the final report and the final presentation are worth quite a bit. So hopefully you're building up the building blocks to get there by the end of the semester, and you're incorporating that feedback as we go. So that's kind of your group project breakdown. Your scope of work is your first deliverable, and if you have any questions on how to write one, please let me know. If you're having any trouble with groups, let me know. And then if there's any other questions related to the group project, feel free to shoot me an email at any time. I'm pretty quick at answering. All right, I will see you all in class.